Welcome to episode 4 of this little series about me and my business and documenting my journey. A few updates from this week. It's been a pretty tough week in business for me. I think this last month's been February, end of February, beginning of March has been tough for me in general. I know what's going to happen in the future, as in I know it's going to be worth my time by taking this step back, and I knew this step back wasn't going to be easy, especially when I could potentially be doing making money from web design, to then not have my developers work on websites is quite difficult, and for them to be going on this one software which isn't bringing money like directly at the minute, but hopefully in a month or two it will be. Obviously it's like the return on investment really on it, it's going to take a lot longer because there's more money within it. But I suppose I'll start with the worst news, which is my developer, so the second guy that I was getting in to replace Owen. His name is Luke. He didn't have the time to commit to working for Next Design and completing this software. And we've got people who are willing to pay us money for the software when it's ready. The longer it gets delayed, the more money we're going to lose. So, at least he's being honest with me. There was a little delay with our client updates, and I feel like he's got a family. He's a young guy. He's got a family. And I think he's just got too much going on right now. That this isn't his biggest priority. It couldn't really come at a worse time for him. So yeah, and I mean that's just what happens, And there's nothing I can do. I've just got to try these developers out, see where they're going. I didn't really hold any sort of interviewing process last time, and it was sort of just I knew he was my second developer, so he's always just done the extra work and as and when he can, and then to make him to that lead developer is a big step for him that he obviously couldn't fill. I just appreciate it coming through now rather than in a few weeks being oh yeah, by the way, I haven't done this and this, and it's I've got deadlines to meet. So yeah, so I suppose I went straight back on the interviewing process. Luckily with my community, got some good outreach to their followers, and basically I've had a lot come back from it. So I've had a few interviews so far today on Sunday, and then I've got a couple more meetings over the Monday and Tuesday, and then I choose who I want to move forward with. I've had some great chats so far, really good engagement with getting on the calls, speaking about what they're going to be doing, what the expectations are, how much time they're willing to spend at it. I'm sort of looking for someone who's a bit younger because they don't have to have those commitments into like a family and any real big commitments. I think the issue with Luke was that he had a full-time job, then he had a part-time job on the weekend, and it's just too much. So for someone to have this as a side income is the perfect opportunity until it can be made, if they wanted to do it full-time. With that being said, I suppose the ideal candidate would be to have someone who is maybe still in college, maybe doing computer science in college. And I've spoken to a few people today, and they they're in the ideal situation. I like when I speak to people who have the same sort of mindset as me, business wise, and I think when I speak to the more younger people for this, they've got that in them. So yeah, so basically that's the worst news of the week. And whilst also saying this probably couldn't have happened at a worse time, because I've got exams in this time in a week. I'll have exams on the Monday, so it's quite a lot. I'm working 12, 14 hours days, really, because I'm and I've got a lot going on with my, to be fair, I've done it all now, but for my uni degree, so having to do that, then having to work on the business, and then having to do some revision as well. I've been a bit lazy with revision, but I need to get a bit more on top of revision. But and I've also got so I do project management. I'm going to do my project management degree for the railway. We have to do a PTS, which is personal track safety, and basically I've got that test coming up soon as well, so I've got to be revising for that. So it's all come at it's the worst time for the business to, for this to happen, because I could really do, just leaving it to the developer and not having to, finding new candidates to fit the role, and for me to just be able to get on with revision and, doing the business in my own time. So yeah, so that's been my week. I mean, it's a journey. This is business. You can have your down times, really. And someone said in the community, basically, he was how do you get through these bad times in business? Because there's a lot of people out there who, just quite easily quit. And he was I'm having a low because he's had loads of business and now he's just got nothing. And that's literally the issue. As in, for me, I've had, decent business, and then I've stopped it. Obviously, the reason people are so successful in business is because, they go through with the bad times. And I just said, to be honest, like, there's nothing, if your mindset's there and you understand the full journey of it, and what it's going to take for you to get through, when you're there, I think you've just got to have that goal in mind, and your dream life, really. Like, what do you want to do with your life? I think even for me now, like, even for this alongside something until it does, take off into a mainstream of income, then that's fine for me to do. I think my opportunity and my degree is, too silly for me to say no. But then, I've still got another 4 years till I finish my degree, and who knows where I'll be in 4 years. That is the thing with business. It has its ups, it has its downs. And I think that's not what no one really sees. And that's why I wanted to document this sort of journey weekly, because hopefully there'll be some good times in business, when I'm recording a video. And I do have good times within the weeks, and even previously, when you make your first few thousand online, it's good. But, in the same time, not many people show the documentation of the bad times, and what it actually takes, and how long these bad times last as well, because it's only been a month for me, but it's felt like ages, and it can really put you down. But I suppose you just got to go with the vision and, trust yourself and, back yourself a bit and understand, you can do this, and it is possible. Because even the other day, it's like, there's no difference between you and someone who's like, a millionaire or who's got all this money. It's just literally mindset and how you're going to get there. It is so possible. Like, it's so achievable. And I think that's what people don't understand, is like, if you actually want it enough, you can go and get it. But it's about having that want. But yeah, so I suppose for the positives of this week, I mean, kept in contact with Dwayne, who, is going to bring us our first few clients and help us scale our offer, which is good. It's just obviously about getting this software done. I've done a lot on the business and the back end side of mapping out the process, basically putting everything in place to know where the client goes in the client's experience. So sort of the client path process. What emails get sent out, what forms need to be filled in, what meetings need to be held, how we're going to integrate this bot into their Instagram. And for these next few weeks, it will be sort of putting plans in place, basically how the whole client experience is going to be. And I think it's really important to nail this, because, you don't want someone coming on board to your business and it being all over the place, all messy, not knowing what emails get sent out, back and forth all the time. It needs to be a really clear system. But at the same time, I want to make sure this launch is correct and it's done the right way. So that's sort of been my main goal of this week. But yeah, I'll keep obviously documenting my journey, and see you in the next one.